The goal is to bring you your next favorite band.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Enjoy yourselves. Here we go.
Thanks for having us. This is a very cool show.
Yeah, so through many iterations, and we finally landed on the weirdest one by far.
Yes, a couple of feelings, and boom, you got a sound.
I remember this one time. I had been writing some songs, and I went out. I'm just going right in on this story. I went out, and so I was.
The story's longer than the song itself. We'll go ahead and play it.
And listen, it's going to be everybody's favorite band. Welcome to your next favorite band. That's both the show title and our promise to you. We here at Stereophilia Studio are tireless in our pursuit of finding incredible, genre-defiant artists who are either a hot up-and-coming band or a group that has been delivering for years but have flown under the radar. Tonight, we have Isaac Horn and Lincoln Mick from the Arcadian Wild. Each month, we will bring you live streams, audio podcasts, and perhaps even a live concert where you can listen to the stories and hear the music of artists personally curated by us based on what we feel will be worthy of your time. Be sure to subscribe and tune in to each episode because the possibilities are endless and you never know who will be your next favorite band. Hello, David.
Hey, Phil, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Here we are with the July episode.
Yes, it is hotter than July. It feels that way.
We're trending that way. I'm sure by August it'll be very hot.
I'm just happy to get a Stevie Wonder reference in right away.
It's always a goal of yours is to make sure we get Stevie in there somewhere.
I can't see how that could be a bad decision.
But yeah, so here we are. Wanted to start by just talking about my new shirt.
That is from another band that was on this said stream last season.
Yes, back in April, we had the sousaphonist from Red Barat, John Altieri, and then they performed here in Bethlehem. It's part of that kind of free series of concerts. And we have some pictures here we can share with people. They're such a cool band. Bhangra would be their style, but mixed with jazz, hip-hop, funk, like all sorts of different things. It's like here's a little taste of what they were like last night. Let's bring that in. So you got Sonny Jane on the drums, on the dole drum. He's kind of the mastermind behind the whole thing. And then they've been doing this since I think it's like 2013 or so. But if you want to go back and check out again, back in April, we interviewed John Altieri, who's the sousaphonist. I mean, I was going to say
quite active sousaphonist. He is moving around the stage, and he has the largest piece of equipment to deal with.
Yes, that is a massive, massive piece of machinery that he is moving and shaking to. Well, super honored tonight to have Isaac Horn and Lincoln Mick from the Arcadian Wild. I mean, if you've never heard this band, just get yourself ready to be blown away. And then also I can't wait to ask some of these questions and hear some more of their story just because there's just such interesting tidbits here. So what we thought we'd start with is just a little bit of a taste of their music from some of their latest release. And then, David, you're going to do some of the bio, and we'll let that kind of play underneath, and then we'll bring them on.
Sounds like a plan.
So here is the Arcadian Wild.
I pull you out from the flower bed. My breath fills your lungs. I'll give this garden to my favorite son.
Led by songwriters Isaac Horn and Lincoln Mick, with the support of Erik Coveney on bass and Bailey Warren on fiddle, the Arcadian Wild confidently inhabits and explores an intersection of genre, blending the traditional with the contemporary in order to create a unique acoustic sound that is simultaneously unified and diverse. They bring a unique blend of thought-out composition and musical accessibility, with roots in formal vocal music and influences from progressive bluegrass and folk. The Arcadian Wild offer up songs of invitation, calls to come and see, to find refuge and rest, or to journey and wonder. Their most recent release, Principium, a 4-movement song cycle that explores human relationship, flourishing, degradation, and redemption, was released in February 2021 and debuted at number 3 on the Billboard Bluegrass Charts.
Just so beautiful. So, without further ado, let's bring on Isaac and Lincoln. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for joining us.
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, thanks for
having us.
So, we're going to get into like all the music and all of the, you know, the different experiences and where you guys all started from. But I guess to just start, you guys we were talking about a little bit before we came on. You guys just kind of wrapped a mini tour of sorts, and how you feeling? I mean, like you got a little bit of a night off here, and you decided to join us. What made you say yes to that one?
We just never have enough to do, so we're always just trying to pack more in. No, it's we really intense periods of the pandemic over the last 2 years.
Sure.
We're just like really stoked to be able to like get out and do our jobs like at all, and it's been really wonderful to gather with people again and get to share music in real life in real rooms with real people and real air in the room.
Yeah.
So,
well, I always felt bad when you watched somebody doing a live stream, like you as a live music lover. I went to them, I sought them out, but obviously they didn't know the reaction I was having. So there's this like, you finish a song and it's like a person telling a joke and then there's no laughter after it. Like there's no applause. There's no gratification. You can't feel the energy, but it would, trust me, it was there. But like, it's gotta be as a performer so hard during that time frame.
Yeah. Yeah, man, we did the live stream thing for a little bit. And I think I don't know how many we ended up doing. We kind of had this regular series that we called An Excellent Evening with the Arcadian Wild. And yes, very pretentious. And I think maybe we did like 6 or 7. And it started like bi-weekly or maybe weekly. And then it slowly shifted to bi-weekly and then monthly. And then not at all.
Yeah.
Then quarterly.
A lot of work.
Yeah. Annually, hopefully never again. Yeah. I mean, I think people just got screen fatigue because they were doing it for their work. They were doing it for their families. They were doing it if they were involved in an organization or a nonprofit, and then their entertainment. And then it just became a point where I'm sure, again, the lack of instant gratification for you all, and then, you know, their kind of burnout just led it to be like, okay, let's get back to live shows.
Yeah.
And that probably like a kind of a cool place to start might be, because you touched on it there a little bit, like getting back to performing. I read this quote where you were talking about that you write music to sustain people, which I thought was just an interesting way to put it. And where it was coming from was the story behind the name of the band, how there was this, I think it's a Greek city called Arcadia. And so I just thought maybe you want to talk about that for a quick second, because it could tie into all that.
Yeah, of course. So Arcadia, obviously like a real place. And there are places here in North America named after Arcadia. So originally it's a Greek province, and in ancient mythological stories and also later on in like portrayals of Arcadia in Renaissance art and literature, it's portrayed as this place where it's eternally spring and nothing ever dies. And it's sort of this like perfect microcosm, the perfect environment. And it's not a city, it's not an urban environment, but it's kind of like a pastoral paradise, and people live there and they take care of the place that they live, and it takes care of them. And there's this sense of mutual belonging and reciprocity that we thought was a really beautiful idea. And somewhere we read one writer had written something like, there are always echoes of this like perfect music floating through the air of Arcadia. And we thought that was just like a really beautiful idea. And I think when we kind of like landed on the name and we're exploring that, we maybe had an ideal to like make music that sounded like that. Sure. That could kind of be a place for people to like come and rest or explore, or find healing or restoration or nourishment, to a sustenance of some form. So,
and I can so as I prepare for these, you do obviously research on facts, but then you also just keep playing the music so you can take things out. And I was walking around Bethlehem here in the later hours one night, and I was just like, when I expire, I hope I hear all the songs that you haven't yet written. Like, it's this like angelic music that just, I think it fits exactly everything you just talked about, that I was like, I think I want to live in the afterlife set to the music of Arcadian Wild. Like, it's just so, so beautiful. It really is. That's why in the beginning I was like, I'm so honored to have you guys on, because I'm just like, holy cow, are you guys so good at songwriting and performing? And that's the thing too, is like the studio stuff is great, but then the live performances just take it up such a notch.
Jeez, thank you.
Thank you,
Phil.
Nobody has even almost said to us what you just said.
That thing
that was like on another level.
And as I thought about it, I was like, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna say it.
No,
and,
thank you. Yeah, that is incredibly encouraging. Yeah, thank you.
Oh man.
So
talking about sustenance. Jeez.
Well, yeah, to touch on what Phil said.
While.
Yeah, what Phil said about the live performance, that is, I think, you're the same thing. The studio performances, you get this perfected version. That's what the studio is all about. But it's amazing to watch you guys be able to reproduce and create and have the energy that flows out of the four musicians on stage, and the voices, which are stunning, and we'll touch on that as we go. It flows. There's a flow that comes out into the audience. When it really is special. It is such a thing. When Phil and I were discussing you guys coming on, when he was on sort of even like a weeks ago, it was one of these like, this is going to be cool.
But it is kind of cool to maybe go and touch back to the beginnings and kind of progress through stuff. But if I read it right, Isaac, before you found music, you were listening to punk rock music. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even once I found the style of music that we play now, I still just listen to punk rock all the time.
That is so funny and awesome to think about. Like,
well, we both listened a lot to a band called Reliant K whenever we were kids, and they're still one of my favorite bands. And they're like, the arrangements, honestly, arrangements and like songwriting is like not all that different from the way that we approach arrangements and lyrics. So I still think I carry a lot of that stuff with me.
That is very, very cool. And then from what I read too, like then you heard a band called The Tallest Man on Earth, and that kind of changed things for you. Yeah,
right. That was sort of my first sort of example of acoustic music that really like captured me, and his guitar playing was what really like drew me in. Just really, really intricate, like finger style playing.
Sure.
He used a lot of open tunings, which at the time kind of like opened the guitar wide open for me.
Sure.
And a lot of the writing that I was doing in high school and in college was with those open tunings. And I've like since kind of transitioned out of that. It's yeah, he was awesome. Tallest Man on Earth. He's incredible, and I definitely owe a lot to him.
That is so cool. And then, so obviously, if you look at punk rock music and then the Tallest Man on Earth, you naturally progress to the type of music that you're all creating. But there is another element. So. Yeah, but there's that other element, and I think this is something that we should spend a little time on here, is getting into like the choral music, I guess, of your training or your upbringing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Isaac and I both we didn't go to the same church. Since we grew up in different places, but we both grew up in churches.
I guess that's what it was. Yeah.
They had like strictly had like an a cappella musical tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there were no instruments like in the worship services. So it's like just voices. And so I think like that was really instrumental in like our and how we learned how to sing.
Nailed it.
From a really young age. Just like as kind of like learning how to be part of a unit and not like necessarily thinking strictly as like solo singers and like really relying on like the power and the precision of just the human voice. And then we both sang in choir in high school and then later on in college. That's actually kind of how we met. We were 4 years apart in school, and so I had like a summer internship with Isaac's home church in Arkansas. So
but where it culminates to is what you talked about there was college,
mm-hmm.
And you all end up at Lipscomb University.
Yes, Lipscomb, Comfrey Lips. Yeah, it's a small private liberal arts college just south of downtown Nashville, and we were both in the music program there. Again, kind of 4 years apart, so I was just graduating as Isaac was getting to Nashville. But the band had started my senior year, and so like a year after its founding, when Isaac came to town, I told the other two people who had started the band with me, we have to get this guy in here. And so there was, we got it for real. That's like
you should see all the open tunings he's using. I heard he's going to abandon that
stuff. Revolutionary. Nobody's doing it.
He's an acoustic punk rock legend. Amazing. So yeah, that was definitely like those. So we met in like the summer of 2012. So there was I don't know. I feel like there were both some things like kind of marinating and like percolating for us like individually, like on a creative level, and then the timing was just like really perfect. And there was kind of like the band had been started, and then like Isaac and I had a foundation interpersonally already kind of formed, mm-hmm. and then we've just kind of been going ever since then. That was definitely like a big pivot point when he joined the band, and it kind of like it totally changed direction. And it was really funny. There was like, this is tangential, but like
we love that.
But there was like a brief period when Isaac and I were like discussing like forming like a split off like duo project apart from the Arcadian Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I think just by nature of just how developing bands work, like, you know, it's the Arcadian Wild's kind of like been a revolving door of people, like with the exception of the two of us.
Sure.
But because I think that's just like what young bands do when it's like made up of, a bunch of people like in their like early to late 20s, like life.
Yeah, because they'll have like like 4 projects at the same time, and whichever one takes the most roots goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And that's definitely been the case. But it's just hilarious that we had that idea, because like now the Arcadian Wild is just like the thing that the two of us would have gone off and done. Like we just kind of like slowly molded it into like whatever that would have been, I think. And
right.
That said, it's been influenced in profound ways by the people that we've collaborated with. Like the two of us are not like single-handedly responsible for the music that we've made over the last like 7 years. And like we owe a great deal to like all of the different people that have kind of come in and out of our orbit over that time. And they've made like, I don't know, just like invaluable contributions that we're really grateful for.
You used there was some interview I looked at that you used a phrase that you borrowed from Mr. Rogers, actually, where you said that a lot of people have loved the band into being.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a really cool. I was not afraid to bring up this topic because sometimes when there's, this person was in the band, then they're not. You're like, do I bring it up? Don't I? But when I heard you talk about it in that way, I was like, well, clearly it's going to be an okay topic of conversation. And you even brought it up proactively.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's, I think from like, I mean, between all of the people that have like been like actually a part of the band and then like our wives, Isaac's wife Ella and my wife Shelby and our families and and people who have like hosted us on the road, like we used to do like a lot of house concerts. Almost did that like exclusively because that's like all we could book when we were kind of doing everything by ourselves. And, people would like open up their homes and like turn their living room into a venue and then like let us sleep on their guest rooms and couches and like give up their own beds for us and like cook us breakfast. And
well, anytime you want to do that here in Bethlehem, we have a great space and a couple of beds for you guys. So anytime.
Great. Over the course of the last like 8 to 9 years, there have just been so many people that have just like kind of helped usher us forward and nurtured us in really beautiful ways. And we're really grateful for all of those people. To think about the people that have loved you into being over the years of your life. I just like it's such a wonderful way to like view relationships, and I think it like gives us like a sense of awareness for the people who've done that for us, and a sense of awareness of like the opportunities that we have to do something similar in our own way, like whatever impact, like large or small, that may have. Like the music that we make, like it's not just like for us to like goof around on stage and have fun, but like it's for like that can like be something real for someone in ways that like we can't necessarily like plan for or expect or anticipate, but there's something huge there that like we need to take responsibility and ownership of.
Totally. Yeah, we do talk about that with different, like the different musicians we've brought on, is there's these moments in time where it's like you're owning the control. Like you are fully empowered to have their attention. And then that's a huge responsibility for you to treat that with, whatever your artistry is going to bring to the table. So I totally get that. So I guess in keeping with the timeline, if we're kind of now getting towards the release of your first self-titled album in 2015, I just always like to know, like, how does that feel? Obviously, the initial reception is great, but like, how are you guys, in that moment?
It was so funny that we haven't, we're still relatively young and we haven't been a band for that long, but that feels like such a long time ago.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow.
And we were just like stumbling along, and I had when we made that record, I had only been playing the mandolin for like a few months.
Whoa. Okay.
And before Isaac had come into the group, like I was playing guitar, and so like when he joined, he
elbowed you out.
Yeah, I mean, like I kind of elbowed myself because I was like, he can do this way better than I can, and we don't need 2 guitar players. Like we can like diversify what we're bringing to the table. And so I like had a couple mandolins like before that point, but I'd never really seriously spent very much time with the instrument. And so I was just kind of like figuring it out like over the handful of months that we had before we like began that process. And it was such an interesting experience because like all of the music that we recorded for that project kind of like predated the band. Like it was mostly songs that existed before we started playing together, and then were kind of like sort of arranged for that ensemble. And so obviously everything else we've done since then has been sort of written with the group in mind. And I think there are like elements of that shine through and kind of like almost make that first record sound like a little bit of a mixtape, which is fun. Like it's just kind of the vibe for it, like it's not something like, oh, it's so disappointing now, but like, it's just like I think any music anybody makes is just like a really definite timestamp of like where they were and who they were at that particular time. and that's kind of like what we were up to, and like the people that we were musically, and we were just kind of like figuring it out. But it was really exhilarating to get to do that, because we found another guy in Nashville that was kind of like also a recent college graduate from another university just down the street from us, and he was like starting to produce music, and we like partnered with him for that first project, and like the handful of like singles that we released after that over the next couple of years. And we like booked like Starstruck Studios on Music Row in downtown Nashville, which felt like, whoa, this is like a big kid room, and like we're
That's awesome.
like in isolation booths and using fancy microphones, and and it just felt like a big deal, and it was like it was to us at the time,
absolutely,
and it was like a big step, and so it was. There's definitely like a lot of imposter syndrome, but I think there was like a lot of simplicity and joy as well. But it was a neat experience. It was, I think it was a good place to start for us.
There's a track on that one. The song "Her" is on that album, right?
Yeah.
And so when I go into Spotify, it has 27 million streams. There's got to be a story there.
No story. I think the public just loves instrumental, like, mediocre instrumental piano songs.
Now, don't undercut
that's
yourself.
what they want.
It is a waltz. So, I mean, like
a waltz.
It's like a 3/4 or something like that. I mean, it's got something interesting happening with it. So, I think it's a beautiful piece.
Thank you.
So there was no like, I was waiting for like Barack Obama used it in a speech, like I don't like something like
that would have been amazing. I wish. No, I think whenever we released that album, well, one, yeah, I mean, it's definitely if you listen to that album, it sort of sticks out as like, what is this? It just like why is this here? Whether or not it's
in the middle
nice
of this album.
Exactly. Like, this was an interesting choice, and we just couldn't really play instrumental music as a band, but I think already at that point we felt that there needed to be some sort of like lift, just like a little like moment of levity, and so we threw that on there, and then it got picked up by Spotify as like it got put on this piano playlist, this peaceful piano playlist, and I think what happened was. And the playlist is followed by millions of people, and it. I think they just listened to it to study or to fall asleep. So I bet what happened is somebody would put the playlist on, and overnight while they fell asleep, it would play through 50 times or whatever, and enough people did that we looked up. I remember actually getting like waking up and having a text from Vion, the guy that produced that album. That said something like hers got 40,000 streams last night, and I was just at that point I was like, "What? That is? Can't even imagine that number.
Sure.
That's insane."
And for those 27 million streams, what did you do with the $10.57 that you got for that?
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's hilarious for that. It's hilarious for like our. It's just weird that that's the song that has the most streams, and we've never performed it live.
It was like, you're totally, because even like for prep of the show, like I was like, okay, like naturally you would start with the highest streams. So and then there's other songs that I know of yours, so I'm like going through those, and I'm like, well, let's roll it back to the old stuff. I'm like, 27 million. Let's listen to that one, and I'm like,
it's gonna be great. Yeah.
What the heck? You're like, is this the right song? Because it's different than everything else that I thought I was going to get.
Yeah, it was not. Did not see that one coming.
Yeah, I'm a little bit embarrassed that it is the number one song, or at least.
No, don't be embarrassed in the slightest. Be proud.
I mean, it's just weird.
Yeah. So cool. Well, thank you for that. And then here we are now. The next album is Finch in the Pantry, correct? But was that where some membership changed before it, during it? Like how did that all track out?
Yeah, we had a couple lineup changes in between the first full length and Finch in the Pantry. so yeah, we had like the original quartet, which was the two of us, and then our original female vocalist Sarah, and then we had a cello player named Everett. And so think like Everett left, and then Sarah, and then we had like a couple other people come in and out, and then I think like Isaac, I'm trying to remember like the minutia of this chronology, but I don't I think we
he is not coming to your aid right now.
Go on your own, bud.
So it's just,
have at it, Lincoln. Go right ahead.
Yeah, man. It's just so funny. Like there really have been like so many different folks coming in and out. But yeah, we met a fiddler in town named Paige Park, and she joined the band right before we kind of like started writing and arranging for Finch in the Pantry, and that was kind of like our first taste of having fiddle in the group. And as soon as we stumbled on that, it was like, ooh, yeah, I think this is something we need to have like on an ongoing basis, and make sure that we like keep this as a spot, regardless of like whoever might fill it. Like I think this is something that's becoming integral to like the direction that we want to go in. So
sure.
So yeah, we started making that record, and it felt like a big departure from the first record, and maybe like a little more unified just in terms of like overall tone. And sure. we went from like 4 songwriters to 2, which probably kind of helped like streamline things like from like a literary voice and like a thematic perspective. And I think we started to kind of like tap into, I think, what has sort of become our brand, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know how to like
right.
You sort of settled the sound into what the groove was.
Yeah, a little bit. I think we kind of like started moving in the direction that has like taken us to where we are now. I don't think there have been like too many like more pivots between Finch in the Pantry and present day. So
Finch in the Pantry was my first introduction to you guys. So the song "Hey Runner" was on a running playlist that was shared with me. The name of the playlist was "Run Through the Grass." So it was all bluegrass, newgrass, like bluegrass related stuff. So it was right after a Punch Brothers song, and whoever put the whole thing together obviously wasn't running in 4, because the entire thing, I'm like trying to figure parts of these things out while I'm running, and it was a lot of this like it was fantastic, because obviously that was when I was like, wait, is this band? Like I have to go back and like listen to more, and that it's.
I'm not going to run to them, but
no, they were great for running.
I'm going to run to them metaphorically.
This song's not about running, though. It would be interesting to hear the story behind the song, because there's a character in the song that is a bit telling. And I know you guys play the song, at least when we saw you guys opened with the song. So I know it's still something that shows up in your sets. So that for me was my first dip in the pool.
Yeah. This was a song that really I just wrote. I just wanted to write a song that was fun to play. Pretty like that was baseline, the motivator. And I kind of like fabricated this character who worked at a festival, at Music Fest, and was a runner at the festival. So somebody whose job was just to sort of be available to people and run different errands, get the artist / festival promoters anything that they needed. This particular runner was the subject to just a lot of like time abuse, I guess, where the people around them were just sending them on ridiculous errands and asking them to do things that they shouldn't have to do. And I sort of got in that person's head, and the song is like this sort of sarcastic response, like amidst having to run all of these different errands. This character is like sort of beginning to push back a little bit, and ultimately ask the question like, should I keep doing this, or should I like kind of be in control of my own time?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I would love to spend a moment talking about another song on that album, because I always find, and through these interviews, there's just been these very touching moments of when an artist and a songwriter puts something that's very vulnerable out there, and I find it so admirable to put stuff that would help someone else not feel alone. And so I know on that album is a song called Civil War. And I was just hoping you might spend a moment to just kind of sharing what that's about.
Yeah. So Civil War is a song that I wrote. And so, okay, context. When I was 5, I was diagnosed with Tourette's. And I feel like people know what that is now.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
But back then, especially where I grew up, I'd never heard of it. Of course, I was 5. I hadn't heard of anything. But
Limited medical knowledge at 5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the syndrome that's characterized by having sort of involuntary, like vocal and like physical motor tics.
Sure.
And it was one of those things that like was definitely noticeable when I was a kid, and it sort of like progressively like got worse through middle school and high school, and then for lots of people it sort of it reaches a climax and then begins to taper off. And I mean luckily my experience with it has been very mild, and now it really only like rears its head when I get tired or stressed or something.
Sure.
But I wrote that song trying to emulate the experience of just living in with a mind that was just kind of chaotic feeling at times. And I with the music I tried to, that's one definitely that's it's in 7/4 I think. And so from a musical standpoint, it is meant to feel a little jarring, never quite settled. There's a lot of different modulations. So really like at at no point does it feel like you can relax in the song. And I think that was on purpose. And then lyrically, I also tried to sort of create a sense of that chaos. And and I was also I tried to be intentional about not limiting it to Tourette's, and instead something that can be like just we all have our own version of chaos and like sort of like uncontrollable madness, and it affects us all differently. And so I tried to leave space for other people to like meet it with their own experiences.
Sure.
But but that's Civil War. Sort of, you're just fighting with yourself.
Right. No, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for writing the song. Like, I think that's again where, whether it's last month we had Mike Maines and the Branches on, and their whole album, When We Were in Love, is him and his wife writing about how difficult it is to be married. Like, even though these songs are upbeat and poppy, it's about how frustrating it is to not have somebody who you spent all this time with see things the way you see them. And then We Banjo 3 has songs about depression and mental illness and all this other stuff. And it's like, it really, I think it's one of these things, all of that stuff has such stigma to it that it's like, oh, you don't talk about it. But as soon as someone is brave enough to talk about it, everyone else is like, oh, thank you. I don't feel alone as much anymore. And maybe that helps them. So anyway, I always want to make a point to put that kind of information out there, because you just never know how that might resonate or connect with somebody who's just feeling alone.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So cool. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you sharing the story behind that one. So that album comes out, you're settling into the current band that exists today with Erik and Bailey. And you're finding a stride, and world pandemic happens. And so perfect timing. You finally find the quartet, and now we're going to be, shuttered venues and all this other stuff. But which is another thing that we keep hearing from musicians and artists is they didn't wallow in the pity. They just simply said, all right, well, we're going to work on. And you actually went back to this piece that was started back when you were in college, and you were like, you just knew there was something there, and you went back to it and decided to look at it with fresh eyes.
It was cool to dig up that collection of songs again, and to do it with like kind of some separation and some time and distance from them, from when we had like kind of originally dug into them and created the original arrangements and the evolution that they experienced between their like initial formation and their completion. It was just like kind of amazing. And I mean, no one's going to have like as much of a handle on that as Isaac and I do.
Sure. But there's maturity there as musicians, as human beings. Like you're going to approach, there's some heavy topics in there. I think the right way to reference it was it's a 4 movements. It's not like 4 separate songs. They're all interconnected, and it's written almost, forgive me if I get this wrong, but almost operatic in its like approach to how it's telling the story.
Yeah, it's very much like a through composed like single 16.5-minute work.
Right.
And when we were initially writing it like 6 years ago, we tried to be really, really intentional and make as many like mutual considerations as we could, as we were both kind of like chasing down ideas independently. And we would, the composition was really collaborative.
Sure.
We didn't necessarily like start from the ground up as like a co-write, but we would just kind of like use the other's idea as like a starting point to like start building the next piece of the puzzle. And that was like a really neat process. It was like a neat way to engage that process, I think. And I think that's pretty characteristic of how we've always written music for the Arcadian Wild. Like Isaac and I have like tried to like create and like keep space for each other to like chase down as many ideas as possible, and to feel like we've had room to explore everything on our own and kind of like go on our own independent journey. And like once we've like kind of sifted through the mud and like found the little golden nuggets, then we can kind of like go like come back together and sort of melt them down and reform them into something that's kind of that maybe is like more cohesive and I don't know. I think that they're kind of like stages of revision to every Arcadian Wild song. There's kind of like the individual exploration, and then kind of like the duo like peer review thing, and then we kind of like bring everything to life.
Yeah.
When the full band gets together to arrange everything
and polish on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really cool to kind of like watch that final stage of transformation when we brought things to work on with Erik and Bailey, and they're both just like such gifted people and really made and really made like such wonderful contributions to it, and like helped it reach a place that like the two of us definitely could not have done on our own. And
That'd be a wonderful moment to hear that all open up when you finally get to hear all of those pieces that have been inside your head suddenly in the room.
Yeah. And it approaches things like seasonally. So like each movement is labeled spring, summer, fall, winter. And then it's approaching some of those like emotions that are associated with each one of those, as far as it being kind of like the arc of whether it's a relationship or a life lived or whatever. But I credit to David. He recognized that it's also circular in that at the end of winter, it's starting to bring back the same chords that are in spring.
Yeah, that was like definitely a very purposeful move to kind of like tie everything back around at the end. And in that I don't know how much time you guys have like spent like digging into the real minutia of of the piece, but we wanted to kind of like send it back into the theme of the first movement, and then kind of like as the piece was ending, sort of go through a tour of all of the melodic ideas of the previous movements, and for it to all kind of like climax in this like like both like simultaneously like mournful and like triumphant crescendo at the very end. And
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever performed the whole thing live as the 16-minute piece straight through?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like
do.
the only way we do it. When we do it,
that's so cool.
We go start to finish. It's cool.
Wonderful.
Whenever we released it, we would sort of do a prep for the audience, and we do a little introduction and just kind of prepare. Okay, this is a long thing. This is what it is.
It's
we're gonna
4
just go all
songs.
the way
Trust
through
me.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now we just start. So we start and finish. So
my inner prog rock fan loves every minute of the fact that it's a 4-suite movement, that I get my long change, things like that.
I hope you. So this is probably a good moment to talk about local Bethlehem opportunities. One of the we touched on the Red Barat show in the beginning. It's a Levitt show. It's free and so on. You're doing one of those as well here in Bethlehem. It's a Thursday night, July 14th, and I'm currently now going to put forth my request that you play the 4 movements that night.
Oh yeah, yeah, we'll easily hit it.
Done.
Yeah,
done.
Done. You got
it. But I mean, like I said before, like the recordings, you guys are stunning recordings, but like to hear it live and then feel that energy, and then you guys feeding off the energy, like it's just one of those super cool things. Because we were able to witness it at Music Fest last year.
Yeah.
And so you guys played, and again, that's like 3 months prior. They don't even know whether they can host a festival. And then all of a sudden they realize that because the weather is opening up and outdoors is better than indoors, they're like, we can do it. So hurry, book people and so on. And so I'm sure that was exciting for you all, that these festivals, maybe not, obviously not just ours, like all of these opportunities for you guys to get out there and perform in front of live people must have been super exciting.
Yeah, it was such a wonderful feeling when they, started rolling out vaccines last spring, and when we started to see things like popping back on the calendar, like talking to our agent and our manager, it was just like this wonderful renewed sense of hope and vigor, and it was just so great to like get back to that. It's not something that like we just get up on stage and do, but it's like this special thing that the performer and the audience make together.
Absolutely.
And I think like I think we've kind of like held to that conception of like live music for a while. But I think like that awareness was like definitely renewed when things kind of came back last year, and like ever since.
So speaking of that, I recorded some of your performance at Music Fest last year, and it's Silence a Stranger. And a lot of times people tell me, like when I ask people who are like followers of the show, they're like, I really love hearing the stories behind things. That's super cool. But can you get to more music? So we're going to get to the music now.
Cool.
And we're still going to let this play, and then we'll definitely want to chat about it because the song has an interesting story, and there's some other cool things going on. I just would love to even get your take on Music Fest too. But anyway, here is Silence a Stranger by the Arcadian Wild.
Sometimes when I'm weary, it feels good to drown in love.
So it's like all on display there. The songwriting, the musicianship, the nonverbal communications between all of you as partners. I mean, it's like breathtaking. So, like again, hopefully, if that's like the first time some person heard you guys like that, what a great song that is. So about the song, it's kind of about not being able to like turn things off, whether it's a cell phone or just some sort of thing that's distracting you, that you can't get to those quiet moments. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That this Silence a Stranger was kind of like one of those songs that just kind of happened to me. I think like it wasn't a terribly effortful process, and I sometimes when songwriting is a little more effortful, I remember moments like that. I'm like, oh, I just want that again.
I'm sure.
I'm personally having sort of like the equal and opposite experience of that right now, to be totally honest.
But averages are all for, right? To get it somewhere in the middle. Where I was like, they all take about this long.
Right.
But
yeah,
man. But the question I had was, what you're playing in that video is it looked like a cello and a guitar had a baby, but if I understand it right, it's an octave mandolin. Is that what that is?
Yes, that is correct.
So I figured we could have a little bit of a music instrumental nerd moment of having you talk about a octave mandolin.
Yes, it's an octave mandolin. It's got 8 strings, doubled courses where I have 2 strings that are tuned to the same pitch, just like a standard mandolin, but it's just tuned 1 octave down. So the lowest open string is a low G, and it would be the same as like the 3rd fret on the lowest string on the guitar. So it's kind of like it's a mandolin tone, but kind of like in the guitar register.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to play. It's just like a cool like tonal color palette to experiment with. And
that moment in the song where there's like that's obviously an homage to Radiohead Creep, right? Like,
yeah. It's so funny. I feel like this, we don't have a drummer, and so like everyone in the band kind of like takes turns being the drums,
being percussive.
So that's definitely one of those like more on the nose moments. But it's like a nice a rare moment of relief on stage when okay, don't have to actually play any real notes.
Mute everything and go.
Yeah, so, nailed it.
Yeah. So if forgive me, there's this other really cool moment from Music Fest. It's more of you're kind of jamming towards the end of a song, and there's this really cool resolution at the end where like you all look so satisfied at the end that I just always love showing these moments. So hang on, here's another. That just joy of the resolution. As a musician, you're just like, oh, there it is. Like, anyway, I love watching musicians in that moment where they're just so happy of where it got to.
That's really we got through it.
Yeah, like, I was gonna say, like sometimes it's like, oh, this could have gone either way, man.
So anyway, thank you for doing Music Fest, for sharing these moments with us. In the close here, I just always want to make sure that we give you guys a moment to promote whatever you all want to promote. So obviously there's the show here in Bethlehem on the 14th of July. I did see also, like, we within an hour or 90 minutes can get to Philly or to New York. I think you have a city winery show in New York City in the fall. Did I say that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So obviously they can go to your site and see the tour and kind of check you guys out wherever you're playing. If it's nearby, even if it's not nearby, just get in a car and go. They're worth it. But what else do you guys want to promote? So obviously the new music, anything in particular you guys want to put out there for people to check out?
Yeah, we're going to be going on tour again here in a couple weeks, and you guys are our very first stop.
Nice.
And we'll be snaking our way up like through. I think, are we going to like Ohio? No, we're going to New York.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
after Pennsylvania first, I think.
Yeah, New York, and then
so we'll be bopping around like up through the Northeast, and then kind of like heading back through the Midwest. It's funny. The last time we were in the Midwest, it was like March, and it was so cold. It was so freezing. So we were having just been in Texas at the beginning of June. It'll be like a nice change of pace to be somewhere a little bit more temperate as we get into July. So yeah, we'll be bopping around for the summer, and then we've got another fall tour, and we're coming back up to the Northeast for that, and we are working on a new record.
Nice.
And
very exciting.
I think that'll be like a little bit before that comes out, but we're looking at a spring 2023 release, and but there will be some more new tunes coming down the pipeline very soon. Hopefully, this fall as well. So, and
then at some point in the future, a home show here at my house in Bethlehem.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Just say the word, dude.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Well, again, Isaac, thank you so much for sharing the stories. Anything else from your side that you would want to add to that?
I mean, we've got merchandise as well. If we'll have merchandise with us on the road, but that's always a huge help, and it's seriously a very significant way that you can support us on the road with us. We have we're bringing limited edition tour posters, which we've never had before. So if you're able to make it to a show, be sure to grab one of those. Every penny from the sales of those tour posters are going directly to the funding of all the new music that we're working on.
Very cool.
So that's a very real and tangible way to support.
Very, very cool. Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Lincoln. Thank you, David. And we really appreciate our time together here tonight. And
all right, Phil, let's say goodbye to everybody.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Your Next Favorite Band. We will have all of the social media, the YouTube channels, the Spotify channels for the Arcadian Wild here in the show notes. And be sure to check out all of that, subscribe, and also definitely check them out while they're live. As you heard, they are such a tremendous performance, and it's not to be missed. Also want to thank Carver Commodore, Argonaut and Wasp, and Blair Crimmins for allowing us to use their music in the show open and the close. And if you want to sponsor our show, or if you're a musician and you want to submit to be considered to be interviewed, or even suggest something for David and I's next favorite band, get in touch. The website is stereophilia.studio, or you can hit us up on any of the DMs for any of the social media channels. But other than that, I hope we all show up at the Levitt Pavilion in July on the 14th to go check out the Arcadian Wild and any other live show that you guys all want to check out. Hope you all found your next favorite band. Thank you so much.
It's all over now.